Are you looking to access growth opportunities in the continent of Africa? One of the things that businesses across the world are doing right now is they are trying to find the next big opportunity. Let me give you a small history. Did you know that some of the big companies, some of the big brands that you recognize these days, I can mention a few like Coca maybe, those companies have gone for over 100 years of existence. And had it not been for someone back then to think through what the next opportunity will be in all these global markets, there wouldn't be a company of that kind. We will not have such big companies presently. It took someone who sat down, then they looked into the horizon and they just imagined what the world will look like in a few years from now or many years from now. And then they came up with those ideas and they set up the companies. And the companies are as successful as you see them today because one man, one woman thought about that and executed it excellently. Businesses across the world, even today, continue to operate within the same kind of approach. There are people every single day of their lives sitting and wondering what is the next big opportunity in Asia, in America, North America, in South America, in Africa, in Europe. But today, I'm here to tell you that you don't need to start overthinking this whole process. If you're someone who is trying to figure out the next big opportunity, you don't need to start overthinking that process. Stop wasting too much time wondering what is the next investment opportunity in Africa. Why? Because there are some great men and women who have sat down and they have come up with an elaborate explanation on the continent of Africa and on what to look for in the near future and how this continent is going to transform and the opportunities that are available for companies that are looking to set foot in the continent of Africa and never to leave the continent of Africa. If you want to be ahead of the game, if you want to be the people who will start the revolution in Africa, economically speaking, then the time is now. And the opportunities that are there for you to grasp and to take have been put down by three great men who I will mention their name. There's a gentleman called ACHA LEKE, there is MUTSA CHIRONGA, and then there is DESVAUX. These three guys actually decided to come up with an elaborate, comprehensive plan on the continent of Africa. Why? Because they believe that the continent of Africa is the next big thing. The next big opportunity is found in the continent of Africa. And when I read this book, I can tell you for sure, my perception of Africa significantly changed. And therefore, I thought, why do I have to read this kind of a book and contain that information to myself? And because my channel is a channel that basically educates and impacts the lives of people, I decided, let me now read this book and let me put it down to people in form of episodes from page 1 all the way to the last page of this book. So we are starting a journey on the second book. I think you have already seen the first episode on one of the other books, a motivational book called On the Law of Success. That's more of a motivational book and a strategy kind of book. But here, I'm starting another journey on Africa's business revolution. It's one of the best books I've read about the continent of Africa. And I'm here to share this information with you. In fact, it says how to succeed in the world's next big growth market. So the writers actually are believing that Africa is the next big growth market. Now, this content might seem to be something of a management, of a leadership kind of a content. And you might be thinking or sitting there and wondering, what does the next opportunity in Africa go to do with me? I don't have those kind of dreams. I'm not even thinking of setting up a big company. I just want to set up a small company and I'll be fine. The thing is, everything in business trickles down. The next frontier will determine the kind of businesses that you set up, as small as you think your business is. So it is very important that you follow me and watch what I'm about to uncover, and you pick one or two things that can enable you to take your business to the next level. So what are we expecting to learn from this book? Number one, this book is trying to help us to adjust our mental map of Africa. As you all know, people have a very different map of Africa. The perceptions we have about Africa are totally different, and this book will enable us to change. We want to transform our thinking and our view of the continent of Africa. Number two, this book is going to help us to understand why is our mental map of Africa faulty. Why do we think of Africa the way we think of Africa? Why do we see it from the negative perspective that we see it from? Yeah, so we are going through the process of uncovering this book. We will learn about that. And then finally, what you are also going to get out of this book is now the different strategies across the different strategies or a strategic plan that you need to come up with for you to be able to maneuver the continent of Africa. So, can we start? For those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Duncan and this is channel Ask Dra. We are here purely to educate and to inform and to empower the masses because we believe that information is what bridges the gap between the haves and the have-nots. Information is the only thing that can take your life from here to the next level. And information is what I want to dissipate across the world. Wherever it is that you are, this is your channel of choice. So let's start. So one of the things I told you this book is going to do for you, on this episode, I want to explain to you why your mental map of Africa is wrong. When someone thinks of Africa, the first thing that comes into your mind, you're just thinking about the 54 countries. You're thinking about the over 1.2 billion people population. You're thinking about the over 1,000 languages that are spoken across the continent of Africa. You're thinking about how diversified our income levels are, the inequality in income. You're thinking about how the rich and the poor, there's just a very big gap between those two people. You're thinking about how there are countries that are significantly resource endowed, while there are those that don't have resources. And you're wondering, how can countries within the same continent have these levels of disparity? When you think of Africa, you're thinking about infrastructural underdevelopment. You're just wondering, how can we have a country like South Africa and a country like, I will not mention a name, but just know that there's another country in Africa that is nothing close to what South Africa is. And you wonder, how can this happen within the same continent? How can we have countries like Kenya having very high literacy levels, and then you have other countries that completely don't have education? They have literacy levels are way below the global standards. And then of course, how can we have some very sophisticated business models across Africa and very simple business model across Africa that are just solving very small problems? So the thing is, when someone thinks of Africa, those are the things that come into your mind. Yeah. When you think of Africa, it speaks of the challenges. You just think of challenges that human beings are facing across this continent. That is the mental picture that comes to your mind. But guys, this journey that we are about to take is asking you, please change your perception of Africa and start looking at Africa from this perspective. This is how you should be looking at Africa if you're looking at investing in this continent. Number one, did you know that Africa is the fastest urbanizing region in the world? Urbanization is growing at the fastest level across the world in Africa more than any other place. And did you also know that there are as many cities with more than 1 million inhabitants in Africa, more than even North America? That alone should start making you think that, wait a minute, opportunities are lacking, opportunities are awaiting for me in this continent. Also, did you know that more than 80% of its population growth over the next 2 decades will occur in urban cities? Also, did you know that the income per capita of African cities is more than double the continental average? When you take the entire income of African cities and you divide by the population of people who live or who dwell in those cities, it is more than double the continental average. That means if you take the entire average income per capita of the African continent, the cities have almost double. And you want to now understand why the African cities are growing at the rate that they are growing. You want to understand, that is what is informing the growth that you're seeing in terms of how you will have more cities in Africa with more than 1 million inhabitants than you will have in North America. Yeah. Already, that is an opportunity. It is already telling you that the urban cities in Africa are the next big thing. And anyone who looks at setting up a company or a business in Africa should definitely be taking that very seriously. Yeah? Did you also know that there are 122 million active users of mobile financial services in Africa? Mobile financial services. Mobile financial services has revolutionized the way businesses are done in the continent of Africa. Yeah? I can only speak of my country, Kenya, because I have seen how mobile transactions have transformed our country. The way business has just become so easy to do and the way transactions are just very smooth, thanks to mobile money. But the thing is, we are now being told that 122 million active users, and that is a whole opportunity for people who are looking to set up businesses in Africa. Already it is telling you the process of buying and selling has already been made easy by the penetration that active mobile users are in the continent of Africa. that has improved financial services significantly. And then, of course, where we are going, the next level of things, where the world is going, smartphones are huge. They are significant. They are very integral in how the global transformation is going to happen. And can you imagine that the smartphone connections projected to be twice that of North America by 2022? Of course, this book was written back then, so whatever they projected, I think if anyone has the latest details or the latest data, they can tell us, is the mobile connections in Africa already twice that of North America by last year? Did we achieve that? And if we did achieve that, then probably this book was actually very accurate in projecting those kind of numbers. Yeah. So our first objective in this book, or what this book is trying to achieve, is to tell us that for you to actually start seeing the opportunities that are there in Africa, you need to transform your mental view of Africa. Yeah? You need to transform your mental view of Africa. Stop thinking of Africa from those challenges that you know. Stop thinking of Africa from the countries, from the poverty or the challenges that we face every single day. Start thinking of Africa as those opportunities that you're seeing, the over 122 million mobile subscribers. Yeah, the people, smartphone connections, the rate of growth of smartphone connections. Yeah, the rate of growth of urban cities in the continent of Africa. What are the opportunities that are being driven by that growth? The next thing that we wanted to answer in this session is, why do we think that our mental map of Africa is wrong? Why do we have a wrong mental map of Africa? And the answer on this book, which I also agree with, is that, we see things from the pictures, from the videos, from the images that have been given to us by the media, by the mass media that we consume. Media is the mirror of the society. So what the media chooses to show you will clearly, exactly make you start believing that that is the reality on the ground. So this book is trying to tell us that one of the reasons why business leaders across the globe are a bit skeptical on investing or putting their money in a continent of Africa is that, where do they consume the information? Majority of them consume the information about Africa from the mainstream media. And one of the major mainstream media that we have, of course, is New York Times. We have New York Times, which is at the center of a significant financial hub in the global economy. So if business leaders are sitting and looking at New York Times, and New York Times speaks about something like in a series of articles, in a series of subsequent articles, they speak about the abduction that is happening by Boko Haram in Nigeria. They follow it up by the drowning of migrants in Senegal as they were trying to cross over to Europe. The next thing they speak about is corruption in Angola. The next thing they speak about is corruption in Tunisia. And then they finally wrap it up by speaking about government-sanctioned killings in the DRC. If you're sitting in a boardroom in New York and you're making a decision and you're seeing all this kind of content or this kind of news in New York Times, of course, automatically your perception about the content will be like, no, we are not getting our business into that kind of space. We are not getting into that field. You will completely change your perception. But remember, guys, that is not the true picture of the reality of what is happening on the ground. And that is what we are trying to achieve with these upcoming episodes. I am going to walk you through the reality on the ground and the opportunities that are hidden behind that. So why aren't these media platforms educating people on how there has been a significant reduction in armed conflicts? The armed conflicts that were being realized in the 90s and the early 2000s are not the same that are being realized now. There is a significant drop. Poverty has dropped in Africa from around 56% back then in the 90s, all the way to around 40% presently. Isn't that a significant growth rate? Isn't that a significant transformation? Why are people not talking about adult literacy, which has actually grown from around 50% or 53% all the way to a level of around 63%? That already is an opportunity, because remember, literacy levels have a direct impact on the level of skilled labor that is available in the population. Yeah, no one is speaking about life expectancy that has risen, and no one is speaking about the significant drop in infant mortality rates. Those are things that this book is trying to tell you, that if the media were painting that picture to the world, then maybe the global leaders will start changing their perception about that. So guys, as I close this up, remember, this is just the introductory episode of this amazing book, and you're going to enjoy it. What are we looking forward to gaining from this book? What are you looking forward to gaining from the upcoming episodes if you subscribe to this channel and you stick around so that I uncover the realities behind the opportunities behind this continent of Africa? Look forward to a very comprehensive illustration. This book, or the contents of this book, were written by consultants, by great men and women who have worked in McKinsey. If you know McKinsey, you know that McKinsey is a significant consulting group across the globe, and they do a lot of case studies. Majority of businesses that are looking into getting into new horizons, into new spaces, into new opportunities, they will definitely will have to put McKinsey at the table so that as they are discussing, McKinsey will be able to open their eyes to some of these realities. These are consultants. These are seasoned consultants who have a footprint across the continent of Africa and across the globe. So if you have 3 people who have an understanding or who have worked with McKinsey for a significant number of years and who have the access to case studies in the McKinsey library, who have interviewed and who have interacted with global leaders, and they have summarized that in a book telling you about the opportunities that are available in a continent of Africa, you need to start believing that they have done their work, that they have conclusively done their work, and there's something here for you to understand. Insights from over 3,000 McKinsey consulting engagements. That means they have gone and looked into over 3,000 engagements that McKinsey as a company has had in the continent of Africa, and they have deduced insights out of it, and they have included it in this summary or in this write-up. Yeah. So can you imagine 3,000 engagements across Africa? It must be detailed and it must mean something. Also, they have collected views over 1,000 business practitioners in every region of the world. They have gone across the world and met over 1,000 business practitioners, and they have asked them what they truly think about the continent of Africa. So clearly, that feedback that they have gotten, they have summarized to you in a book. So you don't need to go across the world looking for these people. It has already been done. And I am now contributing my part in making sure that information is coming to you. They have interviewed a dozen of CEOs and entrepreneurs. Guys, how often do you meet CEOs? How often do you get the chance to interview CEOs? But McKinsey has access to those kind of people, and they have gotten their feedback. And of course, they have also met major leaders of development institutions. Development institutions, guys, if you know, are at the center of the direction that the world takes, economically speaking. IMF, World Bank. And if someone has access to someone who is in charge of the IMF, they clearly will give you the true and the fair view of the direction that the global economy is headed, including the continent of Africa. In this book, you are going to get a lot of content, and including companies that are thinking big in Africa. And what are these companies thinking? What do they think the next 20, 30, 40 years of the continent of Africa will become? This book has summarized what Dangote Group is thinking. It has summarized what Equity Bank of Kenya is thinking. It has summarized about MTN, Coca-Cola, GE, that is General Electric, Total, Jumia, M-Kopa. They have summarized what these companies are thinking. And you know, these companies are at the center of growth and development in Africa. So this book has also summarized the challenges in Africa that can spur innovation. They have already picked to you challenges that are creating those opportunities. You want to understand the challenges that most Africans are facing, you will find it in this book. And they have summarized it in terms of education, health systems, electric power, and transport infrastructure. They have also answered the question, why Africa and why now? They are trying to tell you, why do they think it is Africa's time, and why do they think it is now? Guys, why wouldn't you want to consume this kind of content? Now, they have finally told you that once you get to understand all these opportunities, once you get to understand all the opportunities that are available to you, do you have a strategy? Do you have a strategy? Because at the end of the day, guys, business is about strategy. It's about how do you strategize getting into this market called Africa. And these guys have already done that. And they have summarized that for you to build up a strategy that will be successful in the continent of Africa, they have said that you have to innovate your business model. Number one, you have to choose the right geographical portfolio. Which specific countries should you focus on? Which specific cities in Africa should you focus on? How do you innovate your business model? How do you make your business model to be appropriate for the continent of Africa? They have even told you that you need to build resilience. You need to be someone who will not be fazed by the challenges that are in Africa, because as much as the international media are reporting those challenges, the truth is those challenges actually exist We face those challenges every single day of our lives, but that does not stop us from seeing the opportunities. And in your strategy, you have to build a resilient strategy so that you can withstand some of those challenges. You have to be someone who can be able to manage risk. You need to be able to manage risk and to maneuver through those risks that will face you. And then you have to unleash the talent that is in Africa. There is a lot of talent, and if you have seen how much Africa is slowly creeping into the global economy, how much talent, including people who are starting to venture and get into the spaces that initially people will not even have imagined that Africans will get into. This book is telling you that your African strategy as a business has to unleash the potential of African talent. And the book is called Africa's Business Revolution. If you can find a copy of the book, well and good. It will be good for you. But I know one challenge that most people have. You probably don't have the time. And even if you have the time, guys, probably you are not a reader. Not everyone is a reader. And I understand that perfectly well. And that's why people like me are here. We love reading. I can read from morning to evening without getting tired. And that's how I increase my knowledge. That's how I completely understand how some of the things in the world operate. And here with me, guys, is an example of how I am going to empower the world. I am going to read for you very, very impactful books. And the book is Africa's Business Revolution. It was written by ACHA, LEKE, MUTSA, CHIRONGA, and DESVAUX. And it is talking about how to succeed in the world's next big growth market. If this sounds like something that will interest you, if this sounds like something that you don't want to miss, guys, will you not hit that subscription button? Will you not will you not follow me on my social media platforms so that we can walk this journey together? As I close this up, remember, I'm going to do almost 3 books consecutively. I have started with The Law of Success. For the people who have already watched that episode, thank you very much. For the people who haven't watched, please go and check it out. And I'm starting another book today, which is The Africa's Business Revolution. Remember, I have already read these books. It is for your purpose that I'm doing this. And then there's a final book that is coming that is talking about the cryptocurrencies. I know you guys are looking into investing into cryptocurrencies or even to understand cryptocurrencies. I am coming with another book, 3 books. Until we get done with these 3 books, I shall not move to the next. But in the meantime, subscribe, follow, like, and let's start this journey together. And I know it is going to be amazing. Thank you guys, and see you again.